Good evening. My name is Joe Sam Robinson. It's my pleasure to have with us tonight Dr. Cecil Staton, shall I say Cecil Staton, a man of many great attributes, and he's favoring us with his presence tonight. And we're having some interesting conversations about the nature of the world. And Cecil, possibly we could start with some of your viewpoints on money in Washington going into the 10 cups of the Democratic Party.
Well, Dr. Robinson, you're aware of the fact that I was a state senator for 10 years. So I had a little bit more experience with state government than I have had with federal government. I would say that at the very beginning. But I remember when I was a state senator, I think the highest state budget Georgia had during that 10-year period was about $23 billion.
Yes.
Today, I think we're listening in on the news as the legislature is getting ready to approve a state budget that I think is in excess of $33 billion.
Yes.
So it's grown another $10 billion here in the state
right.
of Georgia. Well, we've seen, obviously, those numbers on steroids, add the zeros to get to anything related to our federal government. But I think one of the most shocking things to me, and I don't want to be, I don't want to overstate this, but I must say that in my life, and I'm 67 years old.
You're up there in age, Cecil.
I've been around a lot of things. I've been around government for a good portion of my career. I am shocked at the revelations of recent months through the efforts of Elon Musk and his Doge work and those working alongside of him to uncover the amount of corruption and fraud that has been taking place alongside of and peripheral to the federal government as the government has shifted billions of dollars, and probably in aggregate more than $1 trillion, to these non-governmental organizations, many of them with missions that are nefarious or silly or totally unnecessary, and they employ people at incredible salaries, and apparently this has been used to funnel money out of the government's coffers, our tax dollars, through these organizations into the pockets of a lot of people. And I'm not a naive person when it comes to government, but I have been shocked by this, the amount of it, how long it's been going on. It's been going on candidly, Republican and Democrat, but by far the majority seems to have occurred through Democrat or left-leaning organizations, entities, and people. And so I think this may be one of the most significant things of the Donald Trump presidency, and bringing Elon Musk on board with his technology, his savvy business skills to ferret some of this out and to shine the light, the sun upon this nefarious system that has been in place within our governments and system in this country for many, many years. I am shocked.
Well, it's like Casablanca. I'm shocked that the usual suspects might be the politicians.
Yeah,
I'm shocked the politicians have done things like this, but I'll move past that. Right, these things happen. Well, a question I ask is, number one, how much money is it? So I think what happens often is there are picked examples. I don't know. Let's see, and they're on television. We've uncovered that, I don't know, $400,000 went to Bangladesh to help with gender confusion or something like that, something like that, or something. A nebula. These things are out there. What is the amount of money that this happened with? What is the process by which that money went there, and how has it been discovered? And so, and if is there some reason it wasn't discovered in the past? My understanding is that some of these discoveries are referable to AI, and what happens is that tremendous amount of whatever it is, documents. They can just scan that. They've got a huge, and they just push buttons and say, I want everything that mentions equity, every bit of dollars that left Washington, left the Treasury, that had the word equity attached to it. So they have a tremendous amount of stuff going on. And so presumably quite a bit of money. And the thing about it is, if you're creating a political structure and you want your minions to be well supported and be there when they're needed, you're ready to, it's sort of like the National Guard for a particular political party. They can, spring into action. Well, that may be something. And so maybe an investigation of that would be interesting. Now, the thing about it is, I'm surprised the PhD cadre hasn't just jumped on this. And if this information has been discovered, it needs to be well digested to understand what happened and who got the benefit. Now, my personal experience with politicians is not as overt as yours, but occasionally I've observed things, and I have observed that the Democratic Party finds a way, and presumably the Republicans. I mean, I'm sure the Republicans are full of such issues, but I know that defrocked politicians, there's a way they're rescued by the democratic structure, and they're given the different sinecures, different ways. They have some scandal, they survived. The party sort of takes care of them. And that's maybe a normal thing that would happen with any sociological situation. Well, okay, so that's something going on. That's bad. And the thing that's worrisome about it is we have these enormous national debt. We have really huge structural problems in the country. And this, if you're paying your taxes and you see what your tax dollars are doing, that's extremely distressing to see that happen. And even if it's not a lot of money, relatively speaking, that's an issue. One of the things going on in the country is the mechanism by which the country handled the COVID crisis. And so they just helicoptered money. I don't know if any $5 bills fell in your tin cup, Cecil, but they were just really, it was insane. They're flying around, here's a big, if you go to work, we're going to give you a lot of money if you go to work next week. Okay, great. Or if you don't fire anybody, you get a lot of money. So the government did all those things, a very disruptive event. The national debt soared up in the middle of this. And sort of a smaller part of it, of all this extraordinary expenditure for everything, is the corrupt money that went in different places, which has an extremely negative impact. That shouldn't happen that way. And I think you mentioned earlier in a little program, the government is it's sort of becoming a socialist country in a way, and that many people depend on the largesse of the government, and the government, they're rewarded with their votes. They send their votes back. And often the story is which political system is closest to a dictatorship? Is it a democracy or is it a republic? Well, I've heard that question asked in elevated circles. Because the democracy, the charismatic figure can have his supporters, he can give them money, and then they'll keep him in power and they'll become a dictator that way. At a republic, presumably, there are all sorts of checks and balances that prevent that. This may be sort of what's being uncovered here, the absence of checks and balances, and I'll let you run with the football at this point.
I think one of the issues is we've discovered how antiquated government systems are in terms of computers, the way accounting is done. I think Mr. Musk has pointed that out in some cases where there are these computers that generate checks and there's no backup even to the check that's generated. So I think there's a part of it, this might have been easier to pull off because of antiquated systems, little in the way of normal business checks and balances that the average business would even have in place. That's not present within the government to a significant degree. I think the other thing is indicative of this. We we hear this all the time. Members of Congress complain that they are asked to vote on appropriations bills or bills that are appropriating money for various causes. They get them and have to vote on them within 24 hours. There's no way in the world anyone could possibly read that bill and digest it. There will be, it's so complex that it's just easy to push things through. There's no one really looking. If you're in leadership, you have the ability to do this. You can put into those bills whatever you want to put into them, and the rank and file member has really no chance to review it, evaluate it, or even honestly know what's in the bill and what they're actually voting on. So that's something we've heard those complaints for many, many years. But I think it's all those things that we have a system which has been able to be manipulated, and it has allowed money to go into these various organizations through them and into the pockets, I fear, of people. And I when you're talking about the United States budget, $1 billion is a rounding error. We all know that. But nevertheless, it's a lot of money.
Right.
No one should be able to abscond with hundreds of millions, billions, or even $1 million of United States taxpayers' money. I mean, I think the one that I've heard that just sticks with me is that $2 million was allocated to some study about transgenderism in mice. So we want to figure out how to take Mickey Mouse and turn him into Minnie Mouse.
Yes.
And we'll spend $2 million. I mean, so some of it is just ridiculous in nature. Prima facie, you would say, why in the world are we spending tax dollars on this? But in other cases, there may be something within the organization that looks legitimate, but if you dig very deeply, very little of the money is going to the legitimate cause, and most of it is going to huge salaries to a fairly significant group of people. And to some extent, it appears some of those people are, as you suggested, either people with connections to or in the families of politicians and other governmental people. So it's just very discouraging that this has been going on as long as it has, finally uncovered. If you open up the light, shine the light on a den of rats, there's going to be a lot of scurrying about. And right now we're hearing a lot of complaining and a lot of people very upset about this. But I think if it's about truly trying to deal with waste and fraud and corruption in government, we need to give it a chance, and we need to hope that they will, in fact, get to the bottom of this and figure out how we prevent this from happening in the future.
Now, one of the arguments I've heard about this effort to weed out corruption, so to speak, is the money that goes overseas, whatever our little organization is about.
USAID or USAID.
Yes, the USAID that goes overseas, and maybe $6 or $8 billion. And I think this was motivated a lot in the Cold War, so the U.S. is going to be there. And our system is better. We have a better system, and you should be on our team as opposed to the communist team. And so the money just flowed through there. Another part of that is the Voice of America, which was there to presumably present our views. And so we're in this world conflict, and we need to solicit support, so to speak, in different countries and different places. And this has been in there for a long time, generations, several in the event. And people have a sinecure there. They come to work, and actually the idea is they're doing something that they would consider moral and good and beneficial. And they presumably have been doing this, and they would say they've been doing a good job, and they're getting rice to starving children in Bangladesh. They're doing these noble things with U.S. taxpayer money without any particular mandate to do it. I mean, it's just there. That's what the system accomplishes. And a lot of this, you could say, was noble, so to speak. I mean, not everything is transgender mice. So a lot of the U.S. money, which started decades ago, flows through this bureaucracy, presumably for good causes. And if the money were taken away, as it seems to be happening, then there would be a catastrophic humanitarian crisis. So, I mean, is that something that needs to be thought about? What is the waste and fraud and abuse that happens? Well, presumably out of all of this, there are some good things. How does what does one do? And I think the question to ask is, I never wanted money. I drink beer every night. I'm not a bad person, and I need a new car, or something, whatever I need. I have to take my kids to school. I need a new car, or whatever, and I need my money. And we're sending, the money is going to help these starving children without any say-so from me. It's just that's the way it is. And I mean, I'd give money to my church to do it. Instead, the government is acting as a charity giver for me without my consent in the situation. I'm unaware of this is happening. But now, how does that conundrum, how do we resolve that?
I think those are very interesting points. I think you're correct that our government, and particularly the intelligence communities, have utilized some of these organizations to do things that perhaps they cannot do or could not do as easily, and money has gone through them over many, many years. You're absolutely correct, to spread American influence across the world. I think to the extent that those things, or some of those things, need to be done in the interest of our country and its interests, I would only argue, are there better ways to do it, ways that would provide for more accountability? I don't think what they're attempting to do with Doge is meant to totally do away with that aspect of legitimate work. I think putting it under the State Department, which is what I understand is part of the plan. Secretary of State Rubio and the State Department will perhaps have a little bit more involvement and insight and oversight with respect to some of that work that may be legitimate and may need to continue. I think that's fine. I would also argue, however, based upon what I have learned and read, you do wonder, at least there can be a discussion, a legitimate discussion about how worthwhile some of that activity may be. I mean, as you know, we have over 900 military bases across the world, the United States. Is that really something that we absolutely require in order to protect the interests of this country? I think, you can have a discussion about that. Well, the same thing with some of these organizations and some of the things that they were attempting to do to influence, and in some cases, unfortunately, I fear, over time, even try to infiltrate and overthrow governments of other nations through the activities of some of these organizations. All of that can be discussed, and there may be legitimate things going on there. But the bigger issue, and I think you alluded to it at the end of your last comment, Americans are looking at where they are at the moment. And when we have people in Western North Carolina just having gone through the ravages of the floods that they endured, and many of them still beginning to try to recuperate and find a new path for their lives to rebuild their homes, and they're reading and hearing about all of this money flowing to other countries for what may be worthwhile things in some instances. Nevertheless, we have needs at home, and our people are concerned about that. And I think it's a legitimate thing to ask the questions that are being asked, and to look at how we really may want to prioritize our commitments and some of the money we are spending, given the situation that we're facing at home at the moment.
Well, obviously a lot of acute things are happening, and President Trump and his minions are trying to reform things acutely. I mean, that's a fair statement, fair observation. I wonder about putting an appropriate system together so the amount of money that's sloshing around the country, trillions and trillions of dollars, it sticks to hands, doesn't it?
Yes.
So money goes here, money goes there, and the use of U.S. power, all of this money, what happens, and many times people might, I don't know, what can one say? They do deals, the farmers give money, or they get price support, so the government buys their food or grain and then sends it somewhere and does something. And so there are all kinds of interchanges taking place in many, many ways, and it's pretty complicated to run all this. And a question would be, if things were really squared away, how would that work with a democratic system where people are coming in and out, and people say, I'm going to vote for you because I want a new airport in our town or whatever. And that's not a wise thing to do. And the person may say, I want the new airport because I know I can sell them some land and I'll make some money on it. So all kinds of things happen because of human nature. And I don't think we can extract human nature from our political system. We can moderate it somewhat, and that would be a good thing. And each side has its points. I would say, speaking for the Democratic side, then it's fair to make some of their points that, okay, there's money going around, but really the people that benefit from the money are the capitalists. So they're going to put a new bridge in, they want this, they want that, and our foreign policy, the money that goes out to the rest of the world with presumably helping starving children, that is a lot of corruption occurs in those countries, and that allows some American capitalists to benefit from that. And the bases, the same thing. We put these military bases there, but what is the real purpose of these military bases? It may be to keep the regime in power, and there may be some quid pro quo involved in that, and in the big power tussle that happens. That's just one of the things that occurs, and it's hard to take that away from human nature. So we're going, whether or not we punched it out with the Japanese or the Nazis or the Soviet Union or China or whatever. It's almost like we invent an enemy and they invent an enemy, so we can just have these tussles. I'm not sure how we can deal with all that. I do think that it's extraordinary that it's like sort of the Wizard of Oz in the Emerald City, called Washington, the Emerald City. But going there and seeing exactly what goes on is really a revelation, isn't it?
Yes.
Another thing to say is after the Republican regime ends, maybe the Democrats could do that. They could discover all kinds of knavery. Certainly knavery is not limited to either political party. Although I might say the Democrats are pretty good at it.
I think from what we've just seen, they have figured it out, apparently. Well, I agree. You're not going to take the human component out of government. You're not going to take it out of our system because I don't think either party is going to do away with that. But I do think we have to stop and think at this moment. It is a moment of inflection, and what is our country going to be moving forward? We're approaching a cliff financially, if not in many other ways, and we have these wars that are taking place. Whether we look at Ukraine and what Trump is trying to do there, or in Israel with Hamas, the potential for war with Iraq, what we're currently doing with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. I mean, something you said earlier, I think is very true, that there are dollars tied to all of these things.
Yes.
And in any conflict in the world, someone stands to benefit financially, one way or the other. And so all of those things, at least we should be mindful of as decisions are being made. But I think I am glad we are at least at a moment where some of these things can be discussed. I do think and I understand many people do not like Trump. I think Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing,
Yes.
and I think many people are possessed of it. But having said that, I think if you look at some of the people that are a part of this administration, Marco Rubio, I think J.D. Vance, even Elon Musk, and so many others, the Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Commerce. I think these are serious people, and I think they are going to take advantage of this moment to try to at least allow us to think through these complicated issues and see if there's a path forward that makes better sense for this country and puts us on a sounder economic footing so that our children and grandchildren will have a chance for this country to mean to them what it has meant to us and to generations before us, and that the country can continue to hopefully be a positive influence in the world. I really am concerned that our reputation at the moment is not all that we would want it to be. And I think that's particularly true given what's happening in the Ukraine situation. But it's a very important moment, and I think as I look back upon my young 67 years,
You're still a pup.
it's probably one of the most significant moments in modern history, and we've got to make sure that right decisions are made and that we chart a path that's going to lead us to hopefully a positive future.
Well, Cecil, I know you spent time in the UK and go there frequently, as do I. But there used to be a program on BBC called Yes Minister. I don't know if you
Yes.
remember that one. So the idea was the people that really ran everything were the civil servants, and the political appointees would come in and they would just couldn't do anything. And so presumably this is sort of the deep state that President Trump talked about and is attempting to do something about. But they're legal. This has been done before, back in the 19th century, and they're with civil service protection acts, whatever's going on. There's a whole structure that presumably is supposed to stop political influence in the bowels of the state. But in general, there's no hard number about this, but the preponderant members of the governmental hierarchy are, I think, of Democratic persuasions. I mean, not
Yes.
totally, but I think it's a fair thing to say, and that's what goes on. And the way they fly the airplane or guide the ship is toward liberal democratic principles, and maybe sometimes extreme principles. And so that's one of the things that's going on, and there's the ability of the administrative force to do that. And you spoke about President Trump's grand plan. Well, I hope he has one. I hope there is a grand plan that's out there. But what do you do about this? How do you change that configuration, particularly because of civil service protections? And it's just going to terminate. Apparently what's going on is a massive termination or changing governmental structure. So by his lights, it would be a more neutral arrangement. But
Yes.
I asked the question, is there, and you mentioned you've dissected some kind of master plan there, and it would be, I think, just some human outlining, well, this appears to be the master plan. So we're going to swing the governmental taxing ability back from the GNP they take, I don't know, 30%, whatever. We're going to make it 15. We're going to do this, we're going to do this. Authority is flowing to state governments, so we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I think one of the things they're doing is with the DEI, they're basically just everywhere that appears, they're stopping that, which is an extraordinary event. Last comment from you, Cecil.
Well, I do think there's a plan. It may not be as clear as we would like for it to be in terms of what we can see at this point in time. But I do think these are serious people. I do think the bureaucracy is really what is threatened by the Trump administration. He's not a threat to democracy, he's a threat to the bureaucracy, and I think we're seeing everything happen from the use of the judicial system right on down to try to thwart this. That will continue. It'll be interesting to see how they work through all of that. I hope the plan is such that they were prepared for that and they have a plan of how to deal with it. I think in some cases that is taking place. They're going to use every bit of potential they have across the breadth of the federal government to try to reduce it and to eliminate waste. And they're doing it in some creative ways even as we speak, in just trying to figure out who's actually working.
Yes.
Who's showing up? Who's going to show up? Let me know you're here. Send me an email. Tell me what you did last week.
Yes.
That sounds silly, but the reality is the bureaucracy is so large, unwieldy, and there's no one overseeing it to any significant degree that they really don't know how big the bear is that they're trying to tackle. But it is real, and you are quite correct. Many administrations come and go, and they never attempt
Yes.
in any way to deal with that issue because it's just too hard. It's too
Yes.
much. And once you go down that road, there are too many things that are going to start working against you. The thing about Trump that I think is good, he can't run again.
Yes.
And he had 4 years in between his
Right.
terms to think about all this, to try to come up with a plan, to come up with the right people to help do this. And I've been pretty impressed thus far with the energy and the speed at which they've at least attempted to make a difference. The courts, even some judges, radical judges around the country, they're going to try to thwart them, but I think they'll make some progress. Will they get all the way to where I would like for them to go? Probably not. I'm not sure anyone can, but I do think they'll make some progress, and I'm encouraged by it.
Well, thank you for being here, Cecil. I appreciate your once again erudite comments, and we'll talk some more.
Thank you.
Thank you.